Hey everybody, Sean from Media Assault here, and it's time once again for another movie review. This time out, I'm going to be doing a review of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the 2011 reboot of the Planet of the Apes series. And of course, Planet of the Apes the film series started back in 1968 with the original Planet of the Apes, which starred Charlton Heston. And it continued for several years after that, spawning numerous sequels, and I know there was a TV series, but I believe there was actually an animated series as well. And then the series kind of petered out right in the middle of the 70s, and then in 2001, Tim Burton attempted to reboot the series with his reimagining of the original 1968 film, which flopped. Mainly because of the script. The cast was really good in that film. It was mainly the script that let it down. But this 2011 reboot tries a different approach, and it's basically starting off with the origin story of how Earth became the Planet of the Apes. And I'm not giving anything away. Trust me, the trailer does more to give anything away than I have so far. And that's about the only spoiler I will give you. But the plot revolves around James Franco's character. He is developing an anti-Alzheimer's drug called AZ-112, and he's testing it on chimpanzees. Well, one of the chimps has a child and passes the drug naturally onto the child. The child is named Caesar, and Caesar, through a series of events, comes to live with James Franco in his home, and Franco raises him, and tests his IQ and whatnot. And then one thing leads to another, and Caesar and James Franco's character are separated, which allows for Caesar to change yet again in terms of his behavior. And that's all I'll say, and that's purposefully vague. This film was directed by Rupert Wyatt, who I was not familiar with at all before seeing this film. When I came home, I learned he directed and I believe wrote a film called The Escapist, which has been critically acclaimed. So I'm definitely going to check that out on the strength of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, because this is a very solid film. It was written by Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver, who are responsible for The Relic and The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, which are not exactly what I would call stellar films. So I would probably be apprehensive based on their involvement, but they do a great job with this script. The story moves right along. Everything falls into place nicely. Just everything about this movie is just really above the norm. This is a surprisingly good film. Other people in the cast are Frida Pinto from Slumdog Millionaire, Brian Cox, who was the original Hannibal Lecter back in Manhunter in 1986. Check that out. I always try to pimp that film as much as I possibly can because it's a great movie. Who else is in this? Tom Felton, the Draco Malfoy from the Harry Potter films. He's appropriately slimy in this movie as well. Andy Serkis is in this movie, and you won't see his face on screen at all, unless I missed a cameo somewhere where he's a human, but he actually plays Caesar the chimpanzee, and it is his performance that is probably the pivotal one in the movie. And you may know him as King Kong in the 2005 remake. He also was Gollum in the Lord of the Rings movies. And again, as those characters, you won't see his face on screen. Basically, he's a motion capture actor, although he does do acting where he's not in a motion capture suit as well. But primarily, he's known for these three roles, Caesar, King Kong, and Gollum. And he will be in the Hobbit films as well. And John Lithgow is in this movie too, and his role was kind of a surprise to me. I didn't know that he was in it, and he's okay. He's not in it for too terribly long. Excuse me. And I think really what is successful in this film, besides the fact that the story elements are so good and the cast is so good, are the special effects. Now, I am not a fan of CGI, and I say that all the time. But here in this particular film, because of Andy Serkis's performance and because of the quality of the CGI in this movie, which occasionally is not very convincing, but most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, it looks really good. And the difference between having this done with practical effects, like basically latex masks and makeup like they did in the 2001 reboot versus the CGI used here, I just think it comes off a lot better. The CGI is able to convey more emotion on the faces of the apes than the old style approach would be able to do, and I think that's to this film's credit. So in a rare nod, I'm going to say that the CGI here is something that adds to the film rather than detracts from it. So that's a big thing for me, because I really don't like CGI in most cases. But here it makes something possible that is not possible without the CGI. And so, again, that is very cool. If there's a weakness to this movie, I think the fact that it's mainly as a setup to a new series. The movie kind of comes to an abrupt end. There's no real payoff. And I won't say how the film ends, but it's a little jarring, just a bit. Because, like I said, there's not a payoff. This is like the first part of a story. But if you can get through that, and you know that going in, you may have a different expectation when you get to the end and the credits roll. And stay for the credits. Don't leave as soon as the screen goes black, because there's a little bit more exposition that happens right after the credits start. It's one of those things where the credits start and then they stop, and then there's some more footage and more stuff happens. As far as I know, there's nothing at the end of the credits, though. So if I had to give Rise of the Planet of the Apes a rating, I would give it a 9 out of 10. It is a very solid science fiction film. I would have to say this is my favorite film so far this summer. I liked it better than X-Men First Class. I liked it better than Super 8. So I'd really have to say this is the best one so far. And summer is rapidly coming to a close. I've got the remake of Fright Night coming next week, which I definitely will be seeing in the theater. That has the possibility of unseating this one as my favorite film of the summer, but we'll see. So there you go. That's my review of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the 2011 film. And as always, feel free to comment, rate, and subscribe. And I look forward to hearing from you all later. Thanks again for watching. See ya.